Oh my. Well, let's start, shall we?
Let's begin.
I'm Rod Thompson, and I'm the atheist.
Dave Weir, I'm the Catholic.
The atheist and the Catholic. We're buddies, aren't we?
That's what they say.
We kind of take care of each other a little bit.
Sort of, yeah.
You help me, I help you.
Right.
You're actually coming to my Super Bowl party?
That's right. Wouldn't miss it. It's a super party.
That's right. So I'm looking forward to seeing you have fun. I sure hope you can talk Gladys. I know you probably won't be able to get her over here, but
I won't even try.
she's not a party person, is she?
She's not an anything person.
Oh,
Unless,
stop.
if it doesn't involve the grandkids or church,
Oh, okay.
it's not going to happen.
Well, I want to start out by asking you, I just had a conversation with my friend. His name is Mr. Martin, Elliot Martin. And Elliot is an atheist, I'm an atheist, and we did an atheist on atheist. And you and I do atheist on Catholic.
Right.
And one of the things that we were talking about was it's very hard for a Catholic especially to walk away from Catholicism and finally say, okay, there is no such thing as God. And here's the reason. You're going from something that you think is a sure thing, which is even if I'm wrong and there is no God, I'm taken care of, because even if I'm, no matter what happens, I'll get to heaven. So that's
like Pascal's wager.
Pascal's wager. So we went from, I went from that to wanting to figure out why would I want to live as an atheist? Because it was really a big question to me, because philosophically I was an atheist, but in my gut I wasn't, because I was too afraid.
Well, I think there's another dimension to that, Rod, and that's it's comparable to the Jewish experience, where you have a whole cultural, social world involving religious elements, like with the Jews. So you have a social dimension to the religion with Catholicism too, that many times people can move away from belief in God himself, but still retain the social elements of the religion. Like many social Jews are actually secular, not actively practicing. Many Catholics are like that too. The social dimension.
Yes, and that's where I was until finally I went to full-on atheist, because I realized I went from having a strong something to hang on to, I had to have a strong something to hang on to, and here's that strong thing.
It's like a trapeze, switching
right.
bars.
As an atheist, I finally realized what I needed to find out was what is for sure on the atheist side. And what I found was what's for sure is that as long as I live my life, every day of my life, doing something good for other people, that's the rock upon which my Gibraltar had to sit. I had to sit on a solid foundation. And I realized that was my raison d'etre. As long as I do that every day, find some reason to make someone else's life a little bit easier. And what I found was that was a part of Albert Einstein's philosophy.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, Albert and I came up with that on our own.
I'll give you the credit for it.
That's right.
Just to be fair.
So what do you think about my raison d'etre? Do you think that's legitimate?
Absolutely legitimate, and it's a great reason. The difficulty arises in the fact that it's the same rock that Christianity is built upon. Service to other people, laying down your life for someone else.
So you see, I didn't let go of the most important parts of Christianity, did I?
Well, let's not say it's Christianity, but let's say it's, maybe I could paraphrase Jordan Peterson, that there's like an archetype, or Jung, an archetype involved in all of this that Christianity addresses, and the rejection of Christianity requires an atheism that's necessary for humans to live, and that's the bottom line, is to be of service to other people, whatever you call it,
Yeah, because I was always surprised when Catholics that I would talk to about this would say, well, then nothing will keep you from being evil. There's no reason for you to be nice anymore because you're not afraid of God. Well, that's just ridiculous. The idea that we're somehow good because we're afraid of God or afraid of hell is absurd.
Oh, absolutely, because Christians, we're not supposed to be afraid of God, although we could live in fear of the living God when we do wrong.
Well, there's Christians who say you have to be afraid of God. My brother says you must fear God.
Well, that's the beginning of wisdom. But that's the beginning of wisdom. As you progress beyond the beginning, then you no longer live in the fear, but in the love of God, which is the same thing you're talking about. So we're describing the same element that's necessary for human life in different terms.
Probably it's just your use of the word God versus my use of the word altruism. And see, with you have to have a creator. With me, there's no need for a creator. In fact, when Einstein came up with his special theory of relativity, he still believed strongly that there was a thing called the steady state universe. This was before the Big Bang.
That's what we were taught when I was growing up.
Steady state?
Yeah. But in a sense too, Rod, what you're making your own creation too with altruism. You're creating your world. But each Christian must do that too. Paul talks about that we have to create our own belief in God in fear and trembling and walk our own path, which is what you're doing. But if the paths are parallel and go to the same place and pass by the same geography and end in the same way, it really doesn't matter what you call it, the net result is the same.
This brings to mind my question, which is why are so many Christians so eager to condemn and hate atheists, and why are so many atheists so eager to condemn and hate Christians?
Well, I think possibly it's sort of like my wife and I when we're talking about something. I'll say, okay, honey, how about this? And she'll say, no, that's not right. Or how about we doing this? No, that's not, we can't do that, without even thinking about it. So it's, you know how
knee jerk. You're talking about knee jerk?
No, no, you know. So when a Christian is faced with the idea of no Christianity, is such a horror and such an incomprehensible thought that they have to reject it immediately. Just a knee jerk reaction.
Well, and I strongly believe that many Christians tie their belief in goodness and decency to their belief in God. They don't believe one can exist without the other.
Well, it's probably a stretch to try and prove that it does. Can you try and think of a culture or civilization that wasn't based on what we call Christian values without Christianity, that was successful over a period of time, and whose people fared well or better than they did in Judeo-Christian culture over time? The other historic regimes were pretty barbaric and pretty rough, and that's the way man was.
And you know, it didn't matter what religion you were. Mankind was simply brutal.
Absolutely. What is it? Brutal, something that's short, that Hobbes said. That's the way, nasty, brutal, and short, the lifespan.
Yeah.
That's the way it was for everybody up until very modern times.
I like to think we're more enlightened.
I think we are. If you look at the percentage of active wars or percentage of people being killed now, it's less than it has been in the past. So we're making progress.
So speaking of active wars, I'm going to get into politics a little bit.
Sure.
Ukraine, which you know is one of my, you saw my flag out there.
Yeah.
What should we do? What should America be doing about Ukraine? How far should we go?
Well, it's sort of like investing in the stock market. And when your stock's going down, but you have opportunity to buy things at a good price, you're tempted to put more money into it. If you're not careful, you can throw good money after bad. And once you begin that slippery slope, where's the stopping point?
Are we throwing good money after bad?
The problem is the whole thing shouldn't have happened.
We can't fix that. We can't get in the time machine.
That's true. That's what makes it so sticky and difficult to deal with. Yeah. No. Right now it's the best of a bad situation. Yeah. But it would have been better if they had not begun at all. And
well, sure, but we can't do anything about that. We can't stop Putin from doing what Putin does. Putin, this is not the first time. You know, Putin keeps getting away with it. That's why he keeps doing it. He got away with it in Georgia. He got away with it in Chechnya.
Oh, yeah.
Killed thousands, razed the buildings.
Absolutely.
And he thought he could get away with it in Ukraine because he got away with taking Crimea.
Yeah, got away with it. So see, that's the problem. It's like Chamberlain in World War II.
A slippery slope.
The appeasement situation. If we had been firm and consistent. And also, I think there's also a failure to recognize Putin's natural interest in Ukraine. You have to remember that Ukraine is the home of Mother Russia. That's where Russia began. Kyiv was the capital of first Russia with Ivan I. So in many ways, Kyiv to the Russians is like Washington is to us. And it had been contiguous with Mother Russia for a long period of time. Also, the idea of having an enemy's missiles poised on your borders, like we had in Cuba for a while, is not comforting. So that was Putin was looking at. So I think there's also a failure to consider the interests of Russia and their position in all of this also.
I think you can only say that if you consider Russia an adversary, because shortly after the coup of 1989, I forgot what it was called, the Velvet Revolution or something.
Yeah.
Shortly after that, we dedicated ourselves to being friends, and that's the track.
Sure.
We were headed on that track.
Right.
And I don't think you have to think of it in those terms unless we are adversaries, because Putin made us adversaries again. Putin decided to build an empire, to rebuild the Russian Empire.
Yeah, he wants to reconstitute the former Soviet Republic.
In this day and age, you cannot just grab something and say, this is mine.
One would think so. But the price of not considering the reality of that is what the unfortunate people of Ukraine are experiencing right now. And what saddens me is that while I admire their heroic efforts, infrastructure is devastated. It's going to take 2 generations to recover from that.
All right, so now we're moving on here to
moving along
to Kevin McCarthy. Had a tough time getting enough votes. First time in, I think it's 100 years.
Yeah,
had such a hard time. The mainstream Republicans, which I would probably think of you as, are pretty mad that the wackos, the nut jobs, are taking over the Republican Party. Marjorie Taylor Greene, wacko. I mean, just saying things that are just completely false, that are obviously false. The whole idea that the wing of the Republican Party who thinks the election was stolen are the most powerful part of the Republican Party now. What do you think about all this?
Well, to be honest with you, Rod, I don't think of myself as a mainstream Republican anymore, but more of an independent. Actually, I consider it, I gave it some thought, and what I came up with, I'm actually a 1950s Democrat.
Eisenhower Democrat.
Stevenson Democrat. Eisenhower Stevenson Democrat.
Yeah.
That's what I am, so.
Yeah, because Eisenhower, even though he was a Republican, he sure acted like a Democrat when it came to economic policy.
Yeah, he's a good man. So I'm a 1950s Democrat. Just that the modern Democratic Party has left me behind.
Okay. That's an interesting thing to hear from you.
Yeah.
But I think there are a lot of Republicans who feel the same way you do. They've gotten kicked out of the party.
Well, my other problem is you get this turmoil and this violent updraft of hot air and vortex of heat and fire around the insurrection and these wild-eyed Republicans. And misses the whole issue we're not dealing with the economy, world trade.
Yeah.
So it's like a red herring, and I think the whole thing misses the mark. All of them are off base on what they're focused on.
Yeah, it really makes you appreciate George Bush, doesn't it? Both Georges.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's why I say I don't consider myself a mainstream Republican anymore. They've left me behind too. Everybody's left me behind.
If I said that you're probably closer philosophically to maybe a Mitt Romney, would I be right?
I do like the underwear. That does have an appeal. So.
Yeah, he and Cheney, Liz, even though they're very hated now by most Republicans, they sure are loved by most of the country. They have more people that are for them now than when they were Republicans. Too bad they can't run as independents and win.
I know, Romney's a good man. Well, Liz is a good lady too. So, and that's the problem now, that they're caught up in this firestorm of back and forth over these issues that are peripheral rather than the basic issues facing the country.
Oh, I strongly believe that Tennessee has, ever since the Republicans took control, had done nothing but pass more gun laws, given more rights to gun owners, and made abortion harder. And I mean, the things that matter to us, they don't seem to care about.
Yeah, I agree with that.
The economic issues.
Exactly.
Well,
people can't afford to live anymore in most places in the country. Even Nashville's getting like that now. People can't afford to live in Nashville.
Well, I look at Nashville and I realize that if I was having to pay for real estate, see, this place is paid for.
Well, that's great.
If I was having to pay for it, we couldn't make ends meet every month.
Yeah, well, about 4 months ago, my daughter was notified by her apartment manager that her rent was going up $400 a month.
Yeah, that's happening all over the country.
Yeah.
See, you're not on camera, Trish, so you have to be quiet.
That's a little peanut gallery. That's the fan base.
That's the peanut gallery. Trish is over here making comments.
That's okay. That's good. That's good.
That's good, Trish.
So come on, more comments. More comments.
If you could talk about anything you want to talk to me about in terms of either politics or religion, do you have anything that you'd like to get off your chest? Or at least challenge me on?
I guess I'm past the point of challenging people anymore on anything.
Well, maybe not challenging, but kind of probing to see if there's common ground. You know,
Well, I think we have a pretty large area of common ground. We may have different labels on it, different signposts, different nomenclature, but in the end, it's pretty much the same thing. We all want the same thing, aside from a few major issues like abortion, in which I'm intractable on. That, to me, abortion is murder.
Sure.
Pure
I have
simple.
I have a hard time disagreeing with that. You know, even though I see the practicalities of needing abortion.
I do, but I'll tell you 2 points on that. One is, you ever been to the horse farm in Kentucky?
Many.
Well, they have a place up there when they bury the horse that they bury the reproductive parts in one place and the heart in another place and the body in another place.
I've heard about that.
Really?
Yeah.
That's Trish. She's heard about that.
But also, it's a big industry up there with even people from the Middle East, Ireland coming in, owning property and raising horses. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to sire a stud service.
But why are they burying the parts in different?
I don't know. It's just, the heart of the horse that makes it a racehorse is special. But what I'm getting at is when that stud provides a service and they pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for it, no one says that zygote isn't a horse. Zygote isn't going to be a horse.
No, I understand.
Or in the Kensington Dog Show in New York, that if they have the breeding,
yes,
they don't say it's not a dog. So yet we say that's not a human being. So
I agree with you, because anything potentially that's going to be a human being, you might as well say, hey, that's life we have to respect.
Yeah. However, having said all of that, I've had experiences as a teacher where a few of my students have had near-death experiences with botched abortions. And
Backstreet.
No, in doctor's offices.
Oh my God.
Yeah, because and sometimes they'll bring in a second-rate hack to do it in the office.
Oh my.
But it just broke my heart sometimes to see that this one girl was, when she became pregnant, her boyfriend threw her out. Then when her parents found out she was pregnant, she was 19, her parents threw her out. And so she went to Chattanooga to have an abortion and passed out and it was botched and she bled out going up Mont Eagle, went off the side of the road, almost killed herself.
Oh gee, there's so many stories like that.
So having said all that, as much as I'm opposed to abortion, we fail to deal with women in these tragic situations because many times men don't step up to accept their responsibilities in this. So having said that about abortion, I still have a soft place in my heart for the women who have to undergo this.
And I admire women who go through with it knowing that they're going to give up the baby, because to me, society needs children, especially America. You realize we're way below zero population.
Exactly, and that's one of the reasons I can't be a Republican anymore, because as much as I hate to admit it, I sort of look favorably on the people coming across the border, because
we need them.
We need them. We're going to end up like Japan or Europe,
Yeah.
And anybody who's going through a sacrifice like that to get into this country, willing to risk their lives, they deserve it.
They've proven themselves.
Or whatever,
don't you?
yeah. We can deal with the criminals.
But I just have to say this about abortion, and that is this.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you when you say that the argument that that zygote is not deserving of human respect,
Right.
I think Democrats are so much for freedom of choice that they miss the most important argument. The most important argument is really not a moral argument. Really, the most important argument is a practicality argument.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
And even though I hate admitting that there's not a moral behind that decision, I have to say there has to be something for women in that position. And then you're talking about poor women here.
Yeah, and I think my experience has been that 9 out of 10 women who experience an abortion do not do so joyfully or willingly.
No.
There's an element of compulsion into it.
Yeah.
And also, having said that, in any church congregation on any Sunday morning, if you look out, every other woman in that church has had an abortion.
Yeah, I understand. No, I understand that because people close to me admitted years later that they had abortion. I was shocked.
Right.
Because it's so pervasive.
And this is not something that's just going on in the past 20 years. This has been going on since the beginning of time.
Amen. Amen, brother.
So,
well, I'm glad you brought that up again. We got a chance to agree.
I'm totally opposed to abortion, but at the same time, we have to understand what's compelling women to seek it.
Now, you might think this is an obtrusive question, and if you don't want to answer it, you don't have to. I love you. I swear I love you. You have Parkinson's.
I do.
And it's quite a challenge to you. It's altered your life quite a bit.
Yes,
And,
yes it has.
What I wonder is, how do you keep a positive outlook? I mean, do you have days where you just look forward and you say, oh my, I've got nothing in my future? Do you ever say that to yourself?
I did when I first retired. I went into a deep depression for about 2 months. I didn't know what was going on. I just wandered around the house, and I realized after a period of time that I had defined myself by what I did in life rather than who I was. And that changed my perspective. And then, because of my faith, I realized that this could actually be one of the best periods in my life, because for the first time in my life I could choose what I was going to do, where I was going to do it, who I was going to do it with, how long I was going to do it with, how much money I would spend on it, where I would do it. All those elements of freedom I've never had before. So that in some respects I was more free as an individual than I'd ever been in my life.
I used to not understand that, but now I do.
So, and then I started making those choices. That's when I went into business with my son, opened a Anytime Fitness franchise in Smyrna. Did that for about 5 years.
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
What business?
Anytime Fitness, 24-hour, 24/7 gym.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I had no clue.
I thought I told you about it. No.
I didn't. You probably did, but I just forgot.
Yeah, we did that for about 5 years.
Well, good.
And then 2 big boxes moved in, Gold's and somebody else's, and they were basically giving away memberships. So we sold and didn't make money, but we didn't lose a whole lot.
In closing, I'd like to say that you're a great neighbor. You're not just a good guy. You're somebody that I can count on as a friend.
Well, thank you.
And I really appreciate not just our little talks and our little walks and our little bicycles, but I really admire you as a human being.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I do the same with you.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Well, thank you. This has been a paid political announcement.
That's right. So that's another episode of The Atheist and the Catholic. And,
all right.
And I'm very blessed to have this man as a friend.
Thank you.